Good evening, Western Colorado Summit. How are you? It is great to see everyone here. Have you had a good day so far? Thank you so much. It is an honor to be here. It's an honor to see all of you, and I'm so great you came out to see me get off the stage so you can see Donald Trump Jr. So thank you very much. You know, if you were to find the equivalent of a liberal turnout like this, you'd have to go to the Democratic presidential debate. So this is great to see all of you here today. And I want to thank the people who've made this possible. Thanks to Colorado Christian University, the Centennial Institute, and thank you to all the law enforcement that have surrounded this with love and care and protection over the last several days and more to come. Now, I'm going to start by saying what you already know. There is no place better to be than right here in Colorado for the largest conservative gathering in the west of the United States, right here at home in the great state of Colorado. And while the radical left may choose to focus their energy and efforts on coastal and ivory tower elites, each and every one of you know how important the West is to our great nation, to the idea of America. The West, with its wide open terrain and vast expanses, landscapes, are the heart and soul of this country. The West gives us our great sense of space and pioneering spirit. The West, where Catherine Lee Bates went to the top of Pikes Peak in Colorado Springs and wrote the words to America the Beautiful. The West, where my family has made home for over 100 years. You see, I come from a little tiny town on the eastern plains of Colorado called Yuma. And before I called Yuma home, it was home to my dad, and his dad before him. My family has lived there for over 5 generations, and we're darn proud of that. But sometimes it's difficult to come from rural America. It feels like those who haven't spent time in rural America look down on us. I hear what they say about us. I hear how they use it to campaign against people like me. It feels like some people want to leave us behind, to be forgotten by the big city politicians who are enamored more with resume than accomplishment. You see, the reason I first got into politics was because I wanted to be a voice for my town, my family, my neighbors, and my community, who I grew up with, to be a champion for those areas of Colorado that don't have TV stations or talk shows. I wanted to make sure they had a voice in Denver and in Washington. I wanted every little boy and every little girl from his or her own Yuma to know that they can achieve anything that they set their hearts to. And I want that young boy and that young girl from rural America to be proud of where they came from and to ignore the inaccurate and hateful descriptions of rural America that they may see on social media or TV, aimed only at humiliating them, to make fun of them. Our country is made up of working men and women who don't deserve to be looked down upon because of where they live or what they believe. You see, their destiny is anything they want it to be because that is who we are. The world just came together in celebration of the 75th anniversary of D-Day, and we were reminded of the enormous sacrifice of those that came before us. Those young soldiers stormed the beaches that fateful day to liberate a European continent. They came from Denver, they came from New York City and Los Angeles, and Delta, and Sterling, and Trinidad. America went to war together. Because you see, that is when America is at its strongest, when we are united, fighting for a common goal, fighting for the American dream. That is the spirit of America. On August 15th, 1945, my grandfather wrote a letter to his parents. August 15th, think about that night, 1945, from where his army unit was stationed in Soissons, France, and he wrote, "Aha, that day, 14th August, is indeed a history-making day. And last night at 12 o'clock, when at the last the rumors were confirmed that the world was at peace, I said a silent prayer and know that it won't be long until we are all together again." America was at peace. Growth and prosperity lay ahead. The nation had given its greatest treasure, the blood of our youth, to lead the world to victory against fascism. a fight for a free world and free peoples. It was a moment of national strength and national pride, of definitional values, generational greatness, and moral clarity. It was perhaps the pinnacle of the spirit of America. But today that spirit is being put to the test. It's being questioned. The values that we learned as children are being recast by some as symbols of hate and intolerance. Inspiration is being turned into consternation. Our founding fathers like George Washington and founding mothers like Betsy Ross are being used by the so-called tolerant crowd of woke and enlightened fringe liberals to rally against the values that made America great. Some look to government-controlled Europe and see models of government. Others willingly overlook socialist Venezuela and the warning lights of socialism. These actions of the fringe make it hard to stand with one another when they are espousing far-left radical ideas that are rooted in socialism. And I stood on this stage last year and said the most dangerous thing to come out of the 2016 presidential election was Bernie Sanders' normalization of socialism. Because as Americans, we used to be able to point at socialism as a fringe element of the left and to treat it as something that the world, that we would not accept in the United States. A country founded on liberty and freedom. We made fun of it. We mocked socialism. We said, go ahead, let them run on socialism. We'll beat them every time. But Bernie Sanders changed that. Bernie's successful hostile takeover of the Democratic Party means his policies are now used as a litmus test for Democratic candidates. They are running on socialism because they think they can win with socialism. It's what the radical fringe is demanding. Bernie Sanders actually won the Democratic caucus right here in Colorado. And while the left will cry out that Republicans are fear-mongering and using socialism as a scare tactic, that actually couldn't be further from the truth. Because last year, we talked about it. Warnings that the normalization of socialism and what it could mean for our country, that if they got elected, we would see it on national news and in the halls of Congress. And since then, the Democratic Party has lurched even further left. Just look at the policies their party now stands for. Socialized medicine, the Green New Deal, eliminating the Electoral College, dictating what job you can and can't have, packing the courts, massive tax increases, open borders, and the list goes on and on and on. Socialized medicine means less choice, higher taxes, longer wait times, and more government control. It means losing the health care that you have at your job and having it replaced with government-run health care so it's so free that it's unavailable. My Senate office deals with veterans daily who have trouble getting the proper care they deserve from the VA. We should continue to focus on fixing problems at the VA and keep our promise to veterans, not push legislation like Medicare for All, which is actually Medicare for none, expanding the government's footprint in healthcare and leading to even more delays and problems. This will hurt our ability to provide healthcare and even more bloated bureaucracy. Because we know that Democrats' Medicare for All will actually result in Medicare for none. It will wipe out the insurance held by 160 million Americans that they receive through their job. But at least one thing is clear now. Even the Democrats finally admit that Obamacare has failed and it needs to be replaced. America just can't afford their prescription. And for those of you who aren't from Colorado, you may not know that the state legislature actually passed a bill to eliminate the Electoral College. So if you're from New York or California, congratulations, you just got our vote. Democrats in Colorado want to eliminate the independent voice in presidential elections. The liberal left has exported one of the most sacred obligations, choosing a president, because they believe it will benefit them politically. The idea of giving each state a voice was not lost on our founding fathers when they created the Electoral College. Our founding fathers didn't do everything right, but their system did create a unique system where every single state is appropriately represented in Congress and the manner in which we elect the president. And I have a hard time believing that it's some right-wing conspiracy to think that a state's electoral votes ought to be cast for the person that the state's citizens chose to support and elect. But it's not surprising that the radical left wants to silence the voices of those they do not agree with. Because if you're a Catholic, you are too dogmatic to be a judge. If you adhere to Christian beliefs, you are not qualified to be confirmed by the United States Senate. The attack on faith is a second front in the attack on freedom. And silencing conservative voices is just one of their plans to enact a radical socialist agenda. Just take a look at the Green New Deal. The left knows it isn't popular, but they continue to advocate for it anyway. And when you look at it closer, you'll see that it's nothing more than a very thinly veiled attempt to implement the socialist agenda, to fundamentally change this country, to gain control of the energy we use, the technology that we create, what car we drive, and what job you can or cannot have. And you don't have to take my word for it. Just take the word from the congressperson who introduced the Green New Deal. Take the word of other congressmen who've described it like this. A Democrat congressman said, the Green New Deal takes a socialist economic agenda and puts it under the umbrella of environmentalism. Among other things, the radical Green New Deal would ban fossil fuels, require massive capital expenditures, trillions upon trillions of dollars to upgrade every single building in America, eliminate airplanes, and mandate your vehicle. In response to criticism eliminating farting cows, the resolution's author did not say that it was an exaggeration. In fact, she responded with, well, we shouldn't have a hamburger for dinner, lunch, or dinner, breakfast, lunch, and dinner. But unfortunately, the first wave of the Green New Deal has actually crashed into Colorado because the state legislature passed a bill that many fear may decimate the oil and gas industry, killing thousands of jobs, erasing billions in wages and annual economic impact. The tax revenue from oil and gas operations funds our schools, our fire departments, and other important communities, projects in our communities. The real life impact of this legislation will be incredible on the lives of thousands. But when faced with the problem of what to do after they put everybody out to work, Democrats turned around and introduced a bill in the state legislature called the Office of Just Transitions. Apparently, the Office of Just Transition will pay unemployed workers who have lost their jobs because the government deemed their work unworthy. But don't worry, comrade, the Office of Just Transitions is here for you. It is socialism on full display. The party that believed in the dignity of work has now decided there is no dignity unless they approve of the job. We cannot let this happen. Margaret Thatcher once said, the trouble with socialism is that you eventually run out of other people's money. And we have to go on the offensive, and we have to fight. We must match the far left's energy with our own energy and explain why our ideas and our policies are better for the American people. We, freedom's foot soldiers, must be loud and clear. We cannot be silent while the far left bullies Americans into adopting an extremist agenda. We cannot be silent while the far left bullies Americans into a sense of shame about who we are, where we live, how we worship and work, and what we have accomplished. Because I'm afraid of what America will become under the far left's ideology where if you disagree with their point of view, then you are the enemy. If you disagree with the far left, you are a racist. If you disagree with their ideology, you don't care about your neighbors and your community. Just look at a few of the examples from the last few weeks. Since when did wearing the Betsy Ross flag become akin to wearing a swastika? Since when did the American flag become a symbol of division? Since when did men and women in law enforcement trying to protect our borders and keep Americans safe become Nazis running concentration camps? Since when did anti-Semitic language become acceptable for Democratic members of Congress? The United States is a proud nation. We are a great nation, a nation of hope and ideas, a nation of dreamers and doers. It is this nation that has lifted more people up and out of poverty than any other country in our world's history. But you know what? I don't even think a majority of the American people believe the stuff that they're selling. Heck, I don't even believe that a majority of Democrats believe the stuff coming from their party's representatives. And that's why we need to speak up. That's why we won't be bullied into not wearing the American flag. We will not be bullied into being afraid to support our law enforcement community. We will not be afraid to protect our borders. We will not be bullied into giving up our faith and our right to worship as we see fit. And we will not be bullied into being silent. We are all uniquely American. And over the past several years, we've seen a growing economy and prosperity that's been unmatched in recent times. The lowest wage earners in this country are seeing the highest wage growth. Tax cuts are bringing nearly $1 trillion from overseas back to our country for investment here. But it's not just the economy that's doing well. It's the effort we've made on the courts to make sure that our Constitution is doing well. Because our majority in the United States Senate has been able to deliver a record number of judges who vow to uphold our Constitution. 2 Supreme Court justices, 42 Circuit Court justices, and 83 District Court judges. 127 men and women who will defend our Constitution. Now, I know that the next president will most likely choose 2 more Supreme Court justices. I know who President Trump would select, somebody like Colorado's own Allison Ide. And I know who Bernie Sanders would select. Castro, anyone? And when it comes to the world stage, we've regained our swagger, our rebuilding of the military, to make sure that we will not be content leading from behind. We will not turn our back on Israel, our great ally. We will not let Iran continue to kill men and women in America's military. And we will defend Israel from the capital of Jerusalem with our U.S. embassy there. These are the things that we believe. But the normalization of socialism poses a real threat to the very ideals that we believe in. But I'm optimistic about this great country because I believe we will reject socialism. The American people will always strive for what Thomas Jefferson wrote many years ago: life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Now is the time to take our conservative message of opportunity and freedom to the American people. It's up to each and every one of us to warn about the dangers of socialism and spread the message of freedom, to share our ideas that will lift people up, not put people down. And I'm confident that when given the choice, Americans will choose freedom and liberty over government. And we need to believe in this great and prosperous nation. Just last week, the New York Times ran an opinion piece saying, America is no longer great. Yes, one of the greatest cities in the world's newspaper said, this country is no longer great. We grew up learning that the United States is the greatest country on earth. Some on the left want our children to believe that we're just second best. Like many of you, there's not a lot that I find in common with the New York Times, but this one has stuck with me because I love this country, and I know you do too. We believe in America. We believe in the power of America. We believe that it is morning in America, and we will look up to that great Rocky Mountain horizon for the opportunities that this country has brought to every single one of us and can bring to every single man, woman, and child in this country for generations to come. And when you tell your friends about what's at stake in this country, talk about our greatness and the power and might of ideas, the idea of America. Too many people have sacrificed too much for us to give up. Because America, we're going to be bigger and stronger than ever. We're moving forward. And to the world, I have one simple message. When it comes to America, you ain't seen nothing yet. God bless you all, Western Conservative Summit. Let's get things done.